Ow, alive. Oh my gosh. Yes, this guy is selling lobsters right now.
This is one of over 70,000 sellers on Whatnot, a live shopping platform valued at over $11 billion.
There's 20 plus items sold every second on Whatnot.
Live shopping turns buying into a sport, and in China, it's dominated e-commerce for a decade. That's a market 10 times bigger than ours. But in the US, it kept flopping. So originally, nobody bet on a two-person startup.
I have a spreadsheet that has the first 100 investor no's. It feels terrible. It's truly awful.
But Whatnot has recently reached 1 billion orders, from Pokémon cards to seafood.
It's just wild to comprehend.
You look to be slightly delirious.
1 billion orders is a lot. The vast majority of that has happened in the past 6 months.
Today, it's among the biggest shippers in America.
And we've raised about $1 billion in finance.
I love that you were like embarrassed about that.
It's a big number to live up to. I think we'll live up to it for sure.
Beanie Babies, Labubus, Pokémon. If it's gonna be hot, Whatnot CEO Grant LaFontaine sees it first. Welcome to Term Sheet. I'm Allie Garfinkle. So before we dive into the interview, I've been reading your comments. Thank you so much for the comments. I actually want to read some of them now. We got a lot of Josh Wolf love. One person said, I thought Josh was correct on a large number of issues. I would not bet against him. Honestly, I wouldn't either. He's been right about a comical number of things. And part of the reason I wanted to have him on the show is I think he's also genuinely an original. So thank you for that. Another commenter pointed out something that I thought was really interesting, and this is only a small section, but this is what the person said. Gen Z and Gen Alpha are actually very anti-AI. I think Gen X is the most AI-positive generation. Younger people just look at this stuff in horror. I thought this was really interesting because there's definitely a narrative out in the marketplace that, oh, Gen Z, they're growing up with this, they're gonna love it. But I agree, I actually don't know if that's unequivocally true. There is also one last thing somebody said that I thought was kind of profound and like it was a section from one of those little books of wisdom that has like one section every day. What the wise do in the beginning, the fools do in the end, which I think is actually true. So thank you for all the comments. Thank you for watching. Keep them coming. I actually really want to know what you think, even if you hated it. Grant, tell me about your first collection. What do you consider your first collection?
The first thing I ever got really into collecting was Pokemon cards when I was in like 4th or 5th grade. And I can just remember having my blue binder, but it had all the pages in it. Me and my friends, there used to be a lake at the end of my street. We used to go down, like hang out at the benches and like trade cards and, try and get stuff. And then that's actually how I ended up starting to sell online. It was probably the first step to actually getting to where we are with Whatnot.
Well, I was gonna say, what was that sort of early selling experience like when you were really young? Because it was a different time.
I just remember very distinctly was my first card that I ever sold, which was a holographic Chansey card. The way you would do it, at least back then, is there wasn't even payment processing online. And so you would wait for someone to send you a money order in the mail. And then once I cashed at the post office, then I could go and send it out.
How did you transition to selling? Because I too collected Pokemon cards, but I never got to the place where I was like, oh, I can transact with these.
Even when I was a little kid, I was into like stock market and various collectibles and how could I build a business and how could I make money doing it. And so sort of just like through just that general interest in markets and business, I sort of just learned and kept doing it and sort of, yeah, here we are today.
What was your most profitable sale of a Pokemon card? Do you remember?
I remember, like a really good condition holographic Charizard that I probably sold for $80 or $90. And, if you held on to it today, that'd be worth tens of thousands of dollars. But I do remember selling Charizards online. And that was when I had the big bucks.
And $80 or $90 felt like a real success.
In your 4th grade and you have $80 or $90. Yeah, that was great.
What do you consider the beginning of Whatnot?
Actually, me and my co-founder have this debate. What is actually...
This is contested.
Yeah, this is a contested storyline. There's 2 origin stories. They're both real. It just sort of depends on which one you want to define. One was we were in Tokyo and we were like drinking at a bar really late at night. And we started talking about building businesses and we bought a bunch of domains, like a bunch of random domains.
What did you buy? What are you buying?
I bought like Always Legit and some electronics name site. We knew we wanted to do like something with marketplaces. So like all these like adjacent marketplacing, none of them good. I'd have to go look through my email. And that was maybe like January 2019. And then we're like, oh, we got to start something. We should do it. And then we went back and like we had jobs and we had stuff to do. And so we didn't do anything. That's one origin story. And then the origin story that I generally tell is sort of the beginning of summer 2019, getting fed up with not being able to build stuff at work and, various hurdles. And I go, hey, remember when we talked about this? I really say it was summer 2019. We basically made the firm commitment that we're going to build a business it was going to be a marketplace, and we didn't know what it was going to be exactly. Then in October, we said we're going to do something with collectibles and social commerce. And then December, we launched. And then in July of 2020 was when we built the first live experience. And that's really when the business took off.
The thing that's sort of striking about this is you didn't choose the easy path on anything here. Marketplaces, famously difficult. Collectibles and commerce, live commerce especially, it actually had struggled to gain traction for a long time. Starting a business in general, always tough. You chose none of the easy things.
If you're going to go and build a business going, hey, I'm going to choose the easy things, is just like the wrong lens. And to me, it's just like, how am I going to build something really great? And actually, the way I think you build something really great is you know your domain, you know your customer, and you can actually go and execute on it. I've been a collector since I've been in 4th grade. I spent almost all of my career in consumer tech in two-sided businesses or marketplaces. I had started businesses before, so I sort of learned some stuff along the way. And if you look at Logan's background, it was pretty similar, which is built a lot of tech, a lot of marketplaces. And so as opposed to going like, hey, everyone says this is hard, I went and said, where do we think we can just build something great? And so for us, like, there'd be a bunch of businesses that people might say are easier, but we didn't know anything about, so it'd be much harder for us.
This seems like as good a time as any to ask you to describe a Funko Pop. For our audience that may not know, what is a Funko Pop?
A Funko Pop is a vinyl bobblehead-like doll that are generally built around various IP. So you can get like a Star Wars one, or maybe your favorite football player. And so there's basically a Funko Pop for anything that you could be a fan of.
Do you have a favorite Funko Pop?
So I have a Tom Brady, a Rob Gronkowski, and a Julian Edelman.
Oh, you're a really big Patriots fan.
So you're a
really big Patriots fan.
So I grew up in Maine, which is basically, Boston sports fan. Celtics, Red Sox, Patriots. And I played football growing up, so I'm pretty into football. So I'd say probably those are my favorite.
Funko Pops play a key role in the origin story of Whatnot. Can you explain the relationship between the beginnings of Whatnot and the Funko Pop bobbleheads?
One of the things that is difficult when you start a new business, in particular a marketplace business, is you need to be able to create a great experience for someone, but you don't have that many people. So the early team of Whatnot was basically 3.5 people. Half because one of the guys was part-time, our original designer, John. And if you have 3.5 people, if you try and focus on the whole world, you're going to build a poor experience for a bunch of people, which means no one's ever going to come and use it. And so we wanted to find one set of users that we thought we could provide a really great experience for. And at that point in time, some of our friends and us had started to buy Funko Pops, so we had them. And then we looked at the numbers too. We're like, okay, how many are being sold? Can you just big enough opportunity to at least get something started? But we thought it was, there's a couple $100 million worth of sales, at least on the secondary market, pretty narrow audience, and people were really into them. And so we just thought that was like a good starting place. It was something we knew. A lot of people who were into Funko Pops were really into Funko Pops. They had hundreds. It's like, you can get people and provide a great experience. You can get them to keep on buying. And the market was not too big and not too small. I think we could have probably done it in various other places, but we got the core of Whatnot working and sort of used Funko Pops as the initial starting place.
And you hosted the first Funko Pop live stream.
I did, yes.
Can you walk me through it? What was that day like?
So this was, July of 2020. And my co-founder Logan's the technical one. So he built the first live experience, and he locked himself in his room for about 4 or 5 weeks to build it. And he was coding, 16 hours a day, 6 days a week. And so he came out and he's like, all right, I'm done. We got to test this. And he was just really nervous it wasn't going to work because he just, when you code for 16 hours a day for 5 weeks straight, basically, it's like mentally exhausting.
You can't see straight anymore?
Yeah, this is a mentally exhausting thing. And so I was like, all right, well, I'll go and use it. And then we grabbed all the Funko Pops we had in the house.
How many Funko Pops did you have?
Hundreds.
You gathered your hundreds of Funko Pops at this house in Phoenix.
So we gathered them all up. And at that point in time, we had a buy it now product feature and an auction product feature. We didn't know which one people were going to like more. So we're like, all right, we put half of them in buy it nows, and then we said half of them for auctions. And then we sent an email to a few people we knew in the community and then put the live. And I went in front of the camera and like, all right, here's what I got, everyone. This is the live experience. We're just testing it. I'm going to run the show. Here's all the stuff we have. Let's see what happens.
So what happened?
We sold it to every Funko Pop we had. When we started, we didn't I don't know, we'll run it until it feels right. And so about 2.5 hours and we were just tired. It was like 11 o'clock at night at that point. And then we were very excited, obviously. That would have been more Funko Pops and I would have been able to sell on eBay in a year. And so you're like, well, I don't know what I have here, but I feel like I have we might have made something really special. You could feel it. And so, we closed out. I'm like, this is amazing. And then the next day, Logan went live. And we're like, okay, let's see if we can do it again. And it happened again. And then the third day, it may have been maybe the fourth day after, but the third person to go live was this guy, Curtis, who was one of the original sellers on Whatnot. And he's one of our first employees. He ended up joining afterwards, one of our first employees. He went live, and then we just kept adding more and more sellers in the community. And, there's obviously a lot of stuff in between, but, fast forward to today, and, there's, 20 plus items sold every second on Whatnot.
How do you think about niche marketplaces versus broad marketplaces? Because it does strike me that the world is maybe moving towards some of these niche marketplaces. It does seem like you're even a little surprised even now as you tell the story, though, that it worked as well as it did.
So part of the reason we started niche, so I've spent almost 20 years in consumer internet at this point. I'm getting old. And
we all are.
Yeah. The formative part of my career was I was at YouTube around 2010. And actually, if you looked at YouTube in 2010, what you would see it was largely an aggregation of niches. It's like very niche pockets of the internet. And so if you looked at the evolution of a consumer internet, at least in the US, it almost always started on the fringes. Because the fringes are the pockets of the market that are not well served. Mainstream stuff, there's always a lot of people who are in that market. They're serving customers really well. And if you're going to build a great business, you have to serve some subset of customers really well. And so always inherently believed that the way you build a great consumer internet business is figure out an underserved set of users, provide a really great experience. And then if you can do that well and consistently through time, then you can continue to improve the product experience and start to compete in more of the mainstream areas. So we focused on collectibles for the first couple of years of the business. Now we're in, 100 to 200 categories. Fashion category is actually our biggest by orders. We still deeply care about every original category we're in and investing in it, and there's tons of potential to improve that product experience. But if you start with underserved customers, you can then keep on building and serve more and more customers through time.
This seems like as good a time as any to bring up that we have some news to break. Whatnot has crossed 1 billion orders. You're laughing. You're like, can you?
It's just wild to comprehend.
You looked at me slightly deliriously.
Yeah, I mean, 1 billion orders is a lot of orders. And, with the way the business is compounding today, the vast majority of that 1 billion orders has happened in the past, 6 months.
In the past 6 months?
Oh, the vast majority of it, yeah. Once you have a marketplace business and the experience is really good, it just gets better faster. So, one of the things in the past year, for instance, because we add more and more categories, it means more and more people have things to go and purchase and have better experiences with, and more sellers have more audience they can potentially sell things to. The number of buyers who have purchased in more than one category has grown 170%. So just outpacing, general buyer growth anywhere else in the business. But it is still a mind-boggling stat. I'll go on a slight tangent. One of the things I do when every new hire class comes to Whatnot is I sort of do the story of where Whatnot came from and then back into the mission, vision, and culture of Whatnot. The way our culture, we spend a lot of time trying to build a really good culture that's really customer oriented. So I like to make sure when new people come in, we hit them over the top with it. And we show this picture from January of 2020. And we were renting a house in Mountain View because we were going through Y Combinator, a startup accelerator in the Bay Area. And a big day of orders for us was like 30 orders. And so we have the living rooms. At that point, we were fulfilling our own inventory. So the living room's just full of our boxes. And I was like, okay, this is a big, day. And, the average day on Whatnot now, we do a couple million orders.
How do you scale logistics at that level? Especially when it's happening that quickly.
The way we have it built today is, the way Whatnot works is fundamentally there are a bunch of small and medium-sized businesses who build businesses off of Whatnot. And we help support those businesses, and that's how Whatnot's business succeeds. And so they'll do the fulfillment because they own the inventory. Now, what we do to make it easier is we do direct contract negotiations with logistics carriers. So USPS, for instance, in the US, we're one of the biggest shippers in the US with them. And because of our volume, we're able to get really, really good pricing. We're then able to help them bundle things together to save customers money. And we spend a lot of time on sort of the algorithms to bundle certain types of products together. And then because everything runs through our labels and our systems and our customer support systems, we also monitor very heavily, like how fast are people fulfilling? Is the fulfillment experience good? And if maybe you're starting to slack, you'll get warned and maybe some penalties. And eventually, if you don't provide a great customer experience, we'll ask you to leave.
So it sets up accountability.
Yes.
One of the things I do find really interesting is early live commerce really did have an accountability problem. How did you decide to solve for that?
I actually think like if you look at live commerce, there's actually much more accountability baked into it than any other format, because it turns out you're on camera, you can see the item, and if someone's doing something relatively shady. And there's a bunch of other people in there who will hold that person on camera accountable.
So the community part of it is important.
Yeah, well, I think being able to see the person, be able to see the item, be able to have a set of community who's there all the time, and the fact that you are on camera the entire time. So like,
And does every whatnot seller need to be on camera?
You don't have to have your face on camera, but the items have to.
You have to physically see the item.
You're going to physically see the item every time, yes. There's some counter cases, but almost always it's there. So that just creates a lot of accountability. Now, one of the downsides, of course, though, is that some people will still behave badly, and it's on camera, and everyone will see it. And so I think live actually is a much safer format than anything else, but everything's on camera. So if someone does something bad, everyone's going to know.
What is the most concerning incident around trust or fraud you've ever encountered?
The things that have probably been the most trust eroding for whatnot have been, people opening packs of Pokemon cards, and maybe the pack goes off camera for a second.
Why is that such a problem?
Because when you open packs of, say I buy a pack of Pokemon cards, I really want the holographic Charizard. That's the card that everyone wants. That's the card that I want. And so if you take it off camera, maybe it's like someone's taking that card, et cetera. Now, what we do, we require anyone who's opening packs of cards, you got to keep it on camera the whole time. And so that means that's one of the cases where actually, no, the product has to be on camera the entire time. And so if someone does something funny, we'll action them. If say you get the Charizard, and maybe sometimes it can go missing in the mail. So there's no perfect shipment system. Sometimes things go missing. We'll make sure we recomp you for the full card. So we'll try and get you the card if we can, and just make sure you get exactly what you want. And then of course we have all these other systems in place, which is we're monitoring the refund rate for customers. We're monitoring how quickly they're shipping. We're monitoring reviews. And so we just spent a ton of time and energy in making sure sellers provide a great experience. And if things do go wrong, making sure we protect buyers when they do.
As I think about the scale you're operating at, I imagine you have a pretty interesting view into the direction culture is taking. You mentioned fashion is really big. What are some of the biggest categories on Whatnot?
I think you can look at this from two different dimensions. So there's the biggest stuff on Whatnot today, and then there's sort of emerging things that are just starting to show high momentum. So on Whatnot today, fashion and collectibles are still the biggest.
What in fashion? I'm actually struggling to visualize it.
A huge range of things. A lot of new with tags, small brands, a lot of jewelry, but a lot vintage jewelry, antique jewelry, lab grown diamonds is another really popular thing. Obviously bags. And so just a huge range of just about any piece of fashion apparel you could imagine. And then there's a bunch of stuff where you'll see stuff pop. So, last year at this time, the thing that was popping was Labubus. And you just looked at it and it was just going, completely vertical.
What was driving Labubu demand? I genuinely don't understand.
When I was growing up, it was Beanie Babies. Labubus was the big thing last year. And I have my niece, and, I got her 15 Labubus for her birthday, and she felt like the coolest kid in her school. And the thing that's popping right now are Neatos.
What is a Neato?
Squishy balls, I don't even know how to describe them. So that's like the new.
We'll get a visual.
Yeah, you just got to go on the app and check it out. So that's sort of the new emergent one. And I think it just, there's always just these things that sort of hook on to culture. And once they get hooked onto culture, it sort of has a way of self-perpetuating because people want the thing that other people want.
Within collectibles, what's specifically crushing right now?
Probably Pokemon cards are still having like a monster. They're just having like
such a resilient power.
So this year, I think it's the 30th. I think it's the 30th anniversary of Pokemon. So it's just like a moment in time where there's more attention. They're doing more marketing around it. The generation that grew up on Pokemon cards now has disposable income. So they're buying it and they're, maybe collecting cards with their kids at this point. And so that sort of is fueling it. I think those are a couple of the core drivers. And then sometimes, something gets a little bit of magic and just gets momentum. And this year, Pokemon just keeps surging and growing.
When you sort of think about the most surprising use cases that you've seen, where you're like, whoa, I did not think anyone would use the platform for that.
Selling live fish from a boat.
Can you explain what that could possibly mean?
We have a new category on Whatnot, though. Maybe I'll tell you the way it started. 6 months ago, someone messages me on LinkedIn and goes, I have a fish distribution business out of San Diego that focuses on sustainable seafood. I think Whatnot would be amazing. I want to tell the story of the fish and help people, understand it. I would love to sell fish on Whatnot. Can I? Well, we had talked about this a little bit before, and Logan, my co-founder, runs our new categories division, basically. And so I got him. This guy sent me an email. I introduced him to Logan and one of the people on Logan's team. And he went live the following week. We sort of talked to him, looked at how he does fulfillment, made sure that's good, and sort of ran like a pilot. And in the pilot, he was probably doing $3,000 or $4,000 an hour of seafood sales, and it was an amazing experience because he was selling all the sustainable seafood that came directly from the dock in San Diego that day and was shipped out that day, overnight mail, and he just knew everything about the fish. He knew the story. He knew where it came from, why it was a good fish, why you should buy it at that time of year. Obviously bought some fish in the first show, and it was amazing.
Are you still buying the fish?
Yeah. No, he's like, you should go on Whatnot. It's called eFish, and he is one of the best sellers on Whatnot. So I think that's probably the most surprising. I'm sure there's a million other things in between, but that's my current.
Live fish is pretty hard to beat. And the thing that is so, I think, interesting about Whatnot is it is a world of niche communities, niche sellers that has made a really big business. Was there ever a time you struggled to raise?
So yes.
Because it's so unexpected. Yeah. I figured that had to have happened at some point.
Yeah, and actually in the last round we were valued at, I hate to say it, because I'm also so big, $11.5 billion. And we've raised about $1 billion in financing.
I love that you were like embarrassed about that.
It's a big number to live up to. I think we'll live up to it for sure. But yeah, look, I think anything that's worth doing, you're going to have some series of ups and downs. Anytime I've done something that I've been proud of myself at the other end and have accomplished something where I feel a large sense of accomplishment, it was never easy and it was never linear. And I have so when we're first raising money for Whatnot, I have a spreadsheet that has the first 100 investor no's. And the reason it stops at 100 is because I just got too demoralized, because I basically would capture who said no and why they said no. Half the people were.
If you knew why they said no at all.
Yeah, they'd say something, but half of it is just they're trying to leave the door open and not make you feel bad.
Most people I talk to are like, yeah, I got a bunch of no's and I still felt conviction. I like that you're like, no, I felt sincerely demoralized.
Oh, no, it's awful. Look, I had enough conviction to keep going, but
But it was tough.
Yeah, it feels terrible. It's truly awful.
What did you learn in that time that you still find useful?
Look, I think the reality is a lot of people will say a lot of things, and most of what people will say will not be correct. And so I think you always have to, at moments in time where you're getting a bunch of either negative news from folks or people are saying negative or demoralizing things, you always then have to do the step back and go, are they actually right? Why not? What do I know that they don't know? And just try and ground yourself in facts and reality that keep you moving forward.
As you think about the future, and the kind of role you play in the marketplace. E-commerce sales are growing. And the thing about Whatnot that I think is really interesting is it's both involved in all of these niche marketplaces, but it's also a very big marketplace because it's e-commerce. And when I imagine your competitors, I imagine it could be anything from Amazon to Craigslist to YouTube. When you imagine your competitors, who do you see?
Over the duration of the business, we've competed with all sorts of people. What we always tell the team is make sure we understand if we're providing a really great customer experience. And if someone is providing a better customer experience than us to our customers, figure out how we solve that problem. And so we try not to think very deeply about competition. We try to think really deeply about if we're serving our customers, and if we're not, how to fix it. And so just spend a lot more time on how do I make sure we have the best customer experience, because I think if we do that, we'll create a really great business through the duration.
When you think about the AI boom, Whatnot's rise has been throughout that kind of tidal wave of funding. I don't think of Whatnot as an AI business. I'm sure there are AI components to Whatnot. What is your view on AI, where it fits in Whatnot, and kind of the broader landscape?
AI is a transformational bit of technology. The way we sort of think about it at Whatnot is we want to use AI to help the sellers and small businesses on Whatnot build better businesses and enable us to also build a better business to serve them. There's all this talk of, AI is going to take jobs, blah, 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 blah. And so I think it's a lot of that's, BS. And then if you look at Whatnot very specifically, Whatnot is inherently human. Like, people don't come to Whatnot to watch a robot or an AI. They come to engage with people, build community, bond over real shared interests, and that's not going away. What we want to do, though, is with this transformational bit of technology, we want to make sure our sellers are able to leverage it to build much better, more efficient businesses and help them grow. So, as an example, internally, we use a lot of AI to help understand the business. So it'd be like, you can ask any number of questions of, when will we hit 1 billion orders? Who are the best buyers on Whatnot? And the AI will tell us. And so I think that'd be a really great thing to give to our sellers, because they need to understand their business so that they can help grow it. Some of the areas that are a little bit different, like we use it really deeply in trust and safety, because it can monitor a lot of things, and that's just going to make Whatnot more trusted and our sellers' businesses better. So for us, I think we want to use AI to help our sellers' businesses grow and our businesses grow, but still keep the human element as part of it, because that is the success of Whatnot, is about people, not about AI. Then the whole AI space. I mean, look, on the one hand, it is truly transformational technology. The stuff that can be done with AI is wildly impressive, and so there's real depth to the hype. But there is also hype, and at some point, these things do have a habit of coming back down to earth.
Do you think it'll be a dramatic crash, or do you think it will be slower and more sporadic?
I'm a person who likes to look from history to understand what are drivers of things, and then sort of extrapolate that into the future. And so I think if you were to take that lens, it's very likely there will at some point be a crash.
Full crash. Dramatic. Dramatic enough.
It seems likely that, history with technology is a series of booms and busts around new technology that drives people's imaginations because they can see how transformational it's going to be. Even like utilizing AI in our business is not, and we're like a fast-moving, engineering-oriented business. It still takes time to learn how to use it, build all the right infrastructure around it. And so I would say probably, could this time be the exception? Sure. I'm not I can't read the future, but I think everything would suggest there will at some point, be a bust. Is that 1 year, 2 years, 3 years, 4 years? I don't know.
Who knows?
But the punchline will be like, AI is transformational. And so I can tell you in 10 years what the economic value creation from AI has the opportunity to change the world in really positive ways, but it could be a bumpy ride.
It does make me think, and this is maybe the place we'll end before we phone a friend. When you think about the history of commerce, what moment from the past is the moment we're in mostly?
I feel like I'm probably ill-equipped to answer that question fully. Again, I'll just come back to the stuff that I know, which is more like technology analogs. sort of at the beginning of the internet, beginning of the railroads, beginning of electrification. Like, I do think AI will be that transformational of a technology. But what's the historical saying is the history rhymes, it doesn't repeat itself. And so there's a bunch of differences, right? Like things just move so fast today. So I don't know, my punchline would be we are at the beginning of a pretty large technological revolution with AI that will change a lot of things. It will generally change them for the better. It's going to enable thousands and thousands and thousands of businesses on Whatnot to run much more efficiently. It's going to enable many more thousands of people to create businesses. And so I think it's an exciting time, but there'll be a lot of change.
We've talked about this before. My brother is a seller on Whatnot. His name is Harrison. And I've never done a phone a friend segment on this show. But I thought I would ask him to send us a question for you. All right, so you ready to hear it? I actually don't know what he's going to ask.
Anxiously waiting.
Anxiously waiting. Have you been anxious about this?
Hey Grant, I love your app. I was wondering if you could explain how the recommended feed works, and I'm sure it's a complex algorithm, but would love some clarity on how the various factors are weighed and customized. Thanks, and enjoy the rest of your talk with my amazing sister.
All right, that's awesome.
Oh, I love you, Ash.
So the feed ends up being organized with sort of 3 to 4 core inputs. And there's more to it than that, but at like a really high level. So number 1 is this thing we call defect rate. And defect rate is basically issues with an order that are as a result of a seller. So that would not be like if something was delayed by USPS or got damaged in transit or something like that. Maybe they shipped the wrong item. Shipment speed. So how quickly you actually are shipping items. We have
How fast is fast, by the way?
We ask everyone to ship within 2 business days. So if you ship within 2 business days, you're gold. The third thing is we basically look at whether someone's likely to want to purchase with you. And so we try and show recommendations to people based on if they're going to purchase with that seller. So if your brother, for instance, starts building more of an audience of people who come back regularly and purchase from him, he'll get moved up higher and higher in the feed. The fourth thing we actually do, one of the things that's always really important to us is we want to make sure the systems on Whatnot enable anyone to be able to build a business. And so we allocate some amount of the feed for new sellers, new categories, so that new people can find and have success on Whatnot.
Great question, Hash. I'll text you later.
As none of us can see the future, but imagine you had a crystal ball and you could find the answer to one question. In 5 years, what would that be?
I'd probably ask, crystal ball, show me the biggest mistake that I make in the next 5 years.
So that you can avoid it.
So I can avoid it.
You can avoid it.
Or, maybe the other reframe is, what's the biggest thing I could do to positively, impact the world or, my family? Some version of that, which is either how do you avoid doing something bad, or is there an opportunity to do something really good?
And that was my interview with Grant. Thank you so much for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and we'll see you soon.